Hello everyone for today's study. Let's start this meeting with the first moments of internal harmonization so that we can help us to disconnect our minds, our hearts from the external reality and focus within ourselves. Considering that we are all essentially loving beings created by God with love in order for us to learn to love ourselves and others. Expressing our gratitude for this unique moment of self-illumination, self-reflections, helping us to expand our consciousness as immortal beings as we all are. And in this loving journey that we find ourselves as apprentices, we give thanks for this union with the spiritual benefactors who are also with us, helping us and inspiring us. And in that way, we start our reflections today with a theme that we are focusing on: how to connect with the spiritual world. Our reflections are based on the theory of reincarnation, the immortality of the soul, the natural law that governs us all, and the plurality of existences. We depart from the viewpoint that we are all three-dimensional beings while we are on earth. That is a spirit, perispirit, or astral body, as we pretend to say in different way, and the physical body. So in that way, we start our reflections by understanding that Spiritism, our reflections are based on Spiritism. Spiritism is a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits, as well as their relationship with the corporeal world. It is at the same time a science of observation and a philosophical doctrine. As a practical science, it consists of the relations that can be established with the spirits. As a philosophy, it understands all the moral consequences that result from these relations. This is the main point which we depart here. Then we carry on by studying. Instruction is essential, no one disputes it. But without moralization, it is nothing more than an instrument. Very often unproductive for those who do not know how to regulate its use with the good in mind. Instructing the masses without moralizing them is putting a tool in their hands without teaching them how to use it. Because moralization that is directed at the heart does not necessarily follow the instruction that is directed only at intelligence. Experience is there to prove it. This is said by Allan Kardec in the Spiritist Review 869, the Journal of Psychological Studies. We can even see that today in the world, how that is true. Very intellectual people who are spirits, and yet with no moral or ethical values, and causing great harm to themselves, of course, even if they don't know that, but also for the collective being, for the society, in the family setting sometimes. As we carry on, after all, as we learn in the nature of our thoughts, these reflections are based on Dr. Alexander Moreira Almeida. He brings the question: what are thoughts? Where do they come from? And what causes them? This question is important because when we reflect about the topic, how to communicate with the spirit world, actually, it is through our thoughts. And then he goes on, there are different theories regarding this topic. I will not dwell so long and explaining about them, which are many, since the discussion about the mind-brain relationship is still on the agenda of science, which is pretty much true. In many universities around the world, the academic world has not yet reached a consensus on this matter. And Dr. Alexander Almeida, he carries on by stating for us and saying, I think in this way it's better for us to read. Briefly and dividing these theories into two large groups, we can say that part of the neuroscientists Those who rely on a materialistic, reductionistic, theoretical, philosophical basis assert that the mind is a cortical product, that thoughts are part of this mind, that it is nothing more than an excretion, a byproduct of complex brain connections. And Dr. Alexander carries on saying, they often believe that the human brain is the answer, that the mind does not exist, or that it is just a product for some, an epiphenomenon, an inefficient byproduct of the brain's chemistry and electrical activity. Then Dr. Alexander Almeida carries on saying, for us, because he also studies the spirituality, he carries on, for us, we discuss the issue on mediumship and spiritual influences here. Obviously, the mind is external to the body, pre-existing and surviving it, and thoughts are the result of its activity and not of the brain. What happens is that the brain, an externally influenceable machine with its own plasticity and capabilities, can create synaptic pathways of repetition, promoting the continuity of the same thoughts, even when the mind, the soul, no longer wishes to repeat it. It is worth saying that such addiction only occurs after many repeated stimuli of the mind. It's not just one, it's when we continue and repeat it. For example, a person due to a significant negative experience with someone registers the event as aversive in the emotional field and repeats thoughts of anger against a person who committed the supposed harm against them. After some time, the entire brain system will be saturated with this nature of thoughts, making them repeat themselves, even when they become harmful to the thinking being. What's more, such repeated thoughts end up forming a specific aura around the person. The fluids transform, absorbing the tone given by the altering mind, externalizing themselves modified. Allan Kardec said that evil thoughts corrupt spiritual fluids, just as harmful miasmas corrupt breathable air. That is so important what Dr. Alexander presents to us in terms of thoughts. We go back again that our theme today is how to connect with the spiritual world. It is, as we mentioned, through our thoughts. This is the reason that we are bringing here at the beginning of our reflections a bit about our thought process in our brain. Understand that we are immortal beings, spirits, three-dimensional beings. While we are incarnate, spirit, perispirit, and physical body, we understand that our thoughts are not based on the brain. The brain is the instrument, the organ through which the spirit communicates itself through. And in that way, when we carry on, it can be therefore be concluded that around a person, a family, a city, a nation, or planet, there is a fluidic spiritual atmosphere which varies vibratorily according to the moral nature of the spirits involved. That is fundamental. Wherever we are, all of us, we are thinking beings, if we are conscious or not, but we are communicating with the spiritual world. Why? The spiritual world is everywhere where we are. Could be on Earth, could be beyond, could be on a different planet, or in the spiritual world. That is the way that we communicate amongst each other. And we form groups. So it's important that we bring the attention back to our individuality in our evolving process, that we may cooperate in, let's say, educating ourselves, learning in a different, healthier way to sustain constructive and healthy thoughts in our system, so that we also create this atmosphere within and around us that even protect us and even cooperate for our own health, and therefore communicates also with other beings on a similar attitude, because we are always interconnected amongst each other, either incarnate with incarnate, disincarnate with incarnate, or vice versa, through the way that we think, and therefore also through the way that we feel. And then Emmanuel carries on saying in the book Roteiro, we are obsessed by friends, disincarnate or not, and helped by benefactors. on any dimension of life, according to our mental condition. Hence, the imperative of our constant renewal for infinite good is more or less what I just said. We are communicating with the spiritual world wherever we are and with who we are. Could be in our homes, we could be alone, we could be in our workplace, we could be while we are sleeping, as we will present later on, could be when we are emancipated through the sleep that we also focus. And even those who are without the physical body can also communicate with us through our way of thinking. The question of nature of thoughts is sometimes much more serious than some people think. Jesus already said that adultery begins in thoughts. Then we have in a book in the domain of mediumship by the spirit André Luiz, having here the spirit Aulus, which is a benefactor in the spiritual world, and comments that we draw from ourselves the active energy of our own thought, establishing around our individuality the psychic environment that is particular to us. Our mind is a nucleus of intelligent forces, generating subtle plasma that incessantly externalizing itself from us, offers resources of objectivity to the figures of our imagination under the command of our own designs. What are we thinking? Do we know that? Do we know that our thoughts create an atmosphere around us and connects with other beings? Do we know that the way that we think, we are communicating in the universe, we are communicating in the spiritual world? And I repeat again, the spiritual world is right now where we are, including planet Earth or beyond the planet Earth. And then carry on, we learn that, but we don't stop here. The addiction of externalizing thought forms, we end up altering fluids and tuning into other minds based on the quality of these thoughts. And it's still the benefactor, Aulus, says that where there is thought, there are mental currents. And where there are mental currents, there is association. And every association is interdependence and reciprocal influence. So let's always be more attentive in terms of developing ourselves, that we are aware that we are all communicating with each other through the way that we think. It's very important because we still are, let's say, imperfect, perfecting ourselves. We still all have our limitations. We still have shadows to overcome, and so on and so forth. So when we realize our negative belief systems or negative ways of thinking, let's start rescuing us from us and changing and actualizing that, because it is much more broader that our thoughts, let's say, travel than only within ourselves. As we started to say previously, for us within Spiritism being a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of the spirits, is teaching us that we are thinking beings and we are really interconnected with each other. But what we are trying to say here, the power that we carry within, once we know this natural law, that we initiate this ability to self-educate ourselves and filter our own thinking and changing, because we all are in the evolving process. We are here highlighting the issue of mental attunement, a natural law, knowing or not knowing, conscious or unconscious, in relation to that our thoughts connect each other, is still that is happening. As less as we know, more easily we are communicating with, let's say, lower spirits, or more easily we could be dragged around and tune in to other minds that perhaps we would not do if we know what would happen. For this reason, superior spirits recommend that our conduct in relationships with life be as high as possible. A person that lives in pessimism and bad thoughts has a dark spiritual atmosphere around it, to which unhealthy spirits connect. Anguish, sadness, and hopelessness appear, forming a depressing physical psychic picture, which can be modified under the guidance of Jesus' moral teachings. We are the causes of our thoughts, and we also are the causes to which we choose to connect to. Is important when we are dealing with our elements of anguish or sadness, sometimes the negativity which still can emerge from our unconscious minds. As said, we are in the transforming process. Let's always choose to stop. Let's choose to dialogue with our inner selves and say, yes, I'm feeling very sad. I'm aware of that. Yet I have the freedom to choose to change my thoughts in relation to the experience that I'm experiencing, whatever it is. We always have the greatest power of all within us, which is our free will, which gives us the power of choice. It's not because we carry within or even hidden or not negative belief systems that we need to be enslaved by them. We can, through our own free will, to choose to change that at any moment. And if necessary, we talk to someone that we break free from these vicious conditionings or habits that we learned in some period in our existences. Experiences are here, all of us, to promote us beyond where we are. Yes, we do have challenges. No one will discuss that. But challenges are merely experiences that are helping us for those who choose to go further where we are. Developing our own intelligence, our ability to think, our ability to be more creative in relation to facing these experiences instead of just allowing ourselves to be enslaved by the old vices and conditions. Zalmiro Zinnemann, in the book Perispiritum, he says and explains that the perispirit is a subtle and perennial envelope of the soul, which enables its interaction with the spiritual and physical environments. We all communicate through our thoughts, and we are immortal beings. Therefore, when our physical death happens through a natural phenomenon of life, we carry on alive with our perispirit or spiritual body. And everything what we learn, all our habits, conditions, or ways of being, they are recorded in the spirit, in the perispirit, and will be with us either in the next existence or in the further existences as well. So it's very important the efforts that we put in conditioning ourselves in a healthier way, overcoming our own limitations, especially on the mental level, that we develop a more healthier way of thinking, empowering ourselves, take the initiative to do the training, to go through, to repeat sometimes up to the point that we condition ourselves. In the Spirit's book, in the question that we have here referring to today, which is 495, St. Louis and St. Augustine comments on the action of the protective spirits. They ask us to maintain constant contact with them, improving our mental, psychic, and emotional conditions. And they say to us, do not be afraid to tire us with your questions. On the contrary, always remain in contact with us. You will then be stronger and happier. It is this communication between each individual and his familiar spirit that makes all beings mediums. This is a way to communicate with the spiritual world. We all have our spiritual guides or the protected spirits, which are good beings who are more evolved than us, and they're always available for us to inquire, for us to question, for us to ask for inspiration in order to follow the right pathway, in order to get things right, in order to promote us in our evolving process. So protective spirits are beings who are more evolved than us, more evolved intellectually and morally, because they have a greater understanding about the transitory or temporary experiences which we still are facing as learners as we are. That it's important to understand that no one is alone, that you don't need to go there, here or there in order to connect with the spiritual world, as I mentioned at the beginning. We are in the spiritual world, even as on earth, wherever we are. We can always use our thoughts, our thinking, and connect with our protected spirits. Carry on in your reflections. Do we sleep? Does the soul rest like the body? It's an interesting experience. Remember, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are three-dimensional beings: the spirit, perispirit, and the physical body. So now when our physical body sleeps, is the soul also sleeping or not? And then the answer is no. The spirit is never inactive. During sleep, the bonds that united to the body loosen, and the body does not need the spirit. Then he travels around space and enters in a more direct relationship with other spirits. How fantastic is that? When our physical body goes to rest, which we still need, the soul, the spirit, is free and can travel in any place where it can reach to. It's not that I can go everywhere where I want as a spirit. It always depends on my level of evolution. I cannot go further than I evolved, but we all can emancipate us and have go with different spirits. We all have friends from previous existences. We all have spiritual guides. We all have family friends from previous existences. So we also can choose to tune into the good beings and the dear ones, the ones who are really helping us in our own evolution pathway. And then as we carry on in question 402 in the Spirit's book, how can we confirm the fact that a spirit is free during sleep? Let's imagine that someone doesn't have the understanding that we are presenting here. How can I do that? And then the enlightened spirits say to us, by dreams. While the body rests, the spirit enjoys more of its faculties than in the waking state. It remembers the past and sometimes foresees the future. It acquires more power and can communicate with other spirits, whether on this world or on another. I think a lot of us already have experiences with dreams, isn't it? That is the way that we are emancipating from the physical body. And it's so marvelous to know that it's more, when we are in the sleep phase, we acquire more power and can communicate with other spirits through our thought, and we are not a physical body, we are emancipated through the period spirit, and we travel around in different dimensions, and we can meet with other dear ones, and those with perhaps departed already from earth, if that is already allowed to us, that can happen. Or as I mentioned too previously, we all have friends and good beings from previous existences that also are awaiting for us, as long as we wish to be with them. Sometimes it seems to us that we hear within us distinctly pronounced words that have no relation to what we are preoccupied with. Where do they come from? Did you have already this experience? That is almost like you hear a word within yourself. And then we learn, yes. And even entire sentences. Sometimes it's almost like a phrase is given to us. When we are working on good projects, sometimes a phrase is given to us. It flows to us, especially when the senses begin to go dull. It is sometimes the faint echo of a spirit who wishes to communicate with you. As more as we promote ourselves psychologically and emotionally, as immortal beings as we are, as more as we improve ourselves, as more as we overcome our own shadows, as more as we educate ourselves towards the good of all, we naturally become more subtle in terms of noticing the other beings around us. We perceive more through the inspiration also that those souls are around us and helping us really. They are not there materializing themselves to show them, but they are through the thought inspiring us and helping us. That is very good that we know that we are not alone. At their origin, how are spirits free to choose between the good and evil when they are not yet conscious? Is there some inner principle or tendency that leads them more towards one side than another? When we started our journey in the human kingdom, of course, we were much more unconscious than we are now. Is there, how do we choose good and evil? And then we learn by the enlightened spirits. Free will develops as the spirit acquires self-awareness. There would be no actual choice if it were made by a cause extraneous to the spirit's will. We always had and have and will have the free will, which is the key of our own spiritual promotion, our own spiritual evolution, our own spiritual progress. We all are developing that. Then we have written within our own consciousness the natural law in the universe, which determines what is healthy or unhealthy for us as immortal beings, because we are constantly communicating within the law of cause and effect. And that we can change what we in previous existences or in this existence created and preferred to some extent and conditioned ourselves, which today currently is not suitable anymore. And we can then act on the law of cause and effect, activating or stimulating new causes in our destiny. Can two people who know each other visit during sleep? Can I see someone from another country or whatever? Or even from a different planet? Sure, and many who do not think to know each other usually meet and talk. You can have, without suspecting it, friends in another country. Remember, friends from another country could be that we know each other from previous existences. Now, currently, we are living in different countries. But once we sleep, the physical body sleeps, we can go and meet each other. It is so common that you go to meet during sleep with friends and relatives, with those whom you know and you may be useful to you, that almost every night you make these visits. It is important that we also prepare ourselves before going to sleep, so that we tune into, connect to our protective spirits, the good beings, the ones that care about us, the ones who wish us well, that we ask for help, that they guide us towards visiting good friends, engaging in proposals with other beings that we can study, that we can learn, that we can grow, that we come back to the physical body again, stronger, more centered in relation to carry out the tasks that we are here. Why is it that the same idea, a discovery, for example, arises at the same time in many places? We have already stated that during sleep, spirits communicate with each other. Well then, when the body awakens, the spirit remembers what it has learned, and the person thinks he or she has invented it. Thus, many may seem to have discovered the same thing at the same time. When you say that an idea is floating around, you employ figure of speech that is more precise than you think, or without suspecting it, contribute to propagate it. When we meet with each other in the spiritual world, and then we come back in the physical body, once we wake up in the morning every day, sometimes we have been together in groups studying about certain subjects. Even if we live now in different countries, we can come up with the same ideas, that especially those who are focusing on proposal for goodness. It can happen on the contrary as well, but we are here focusing that we want to be in contact and connect with beings who can help us to promote ourselves. Vanessa, hello. Rosa Okama, boa noite. Welcome as well from the United States. It's very good to have you with us here as we carry on learning together. Why do two perfectly awake individuals sometimes have the same idea as I went through already? And then are there spirits who connect themselves to particular individuals in order to protect them? Yes, spirit friends. What you call good spirits or guardian spirits. What is a guardian angel? I protect the spirit of a higher order. Higher order means we are all evolving, but we all have friends, dear ones, who are more evolved than us. And in order to protect someone, we need to be wiser. We need to know more. And we all have these dear ones who know more than we do and are with us, protecting us. What is the mission of a protective spirit? We can ask ourselves in order to understand what are they doing with us. Their mission is that of parents towards their children. Is care about us. Is inspiring us that we take the right pathway, that we have victory this time around in this existence. Is guiding, is inspiring us, is helping us. Sometimes it's putting people in our pathway that can help us, or sometimes books, they are behind that and helping us on earthly life. Are protected spirits connected to particular individuals from birth to death? Of course, we are talking here about the physical death. Once we are immortal, we don't die, we carry on alive. But this period as we are incarnated, and sometimes even beyond that. Remember, as more as we evolve, more we promote ourselves emotionally, mentally, we become more spiritualized, we become more resourceful in terms of goodness, and therefore we also enter the spiritual family, where we have a lot of friends, not only on earth, but also beyond that, beyond the corporeal existence. The spirit who forsakes his protégé, who ceases to do him good, can harm them. The question is almost like, my spiritual guide who is doing good to me, can they stop doing that? Can they cease that? And then we receive the answer, good spirits never do evil. That is fundamental when we reflect about how can we connect with the spiritual world. As I mentioned previously, and repeat again, the spiritual world is everywhere, even here on earth, in our homes, in the streets, on our workplaces, everywhere where we are. So when they say good spirits never do evil, that is also helping in our own self-education process. If you want to evolve, it is entirely up to us to choose to learn to be better every day and to promote the faculties of the higher consciousness within us that we bring, so that we don't reinforce old habits, and could also be communicating with inferior spirits in that way. And surely we want to be more connected with the good beings. Can protector spirits leave their dear ones at the mercy of spirits who might harm them? Let's see what we learn with that. Can my spiritual guides say, well, I don't want to take care of Evanise anymore. Can they leave me that other inferior spirits may harm me? And then they say, there is unity among evil spirits for neutralizing the action of the good ones. But if individuals would choose, they could restore the connection to their good spirit. So it's up to us that we sustain our connection, our communication with our spiritual guides, or with our family spirits, familiar spirits that always are helping us. Because otherwise, if the spiritual benefactor will never abandon us, but sometimes we choose not to follow what they are suggesting or their guidance through our own inferiorities, through our own negative habits that we still have. They will not abandon us, but we could abandon them and prefer to connect with the inferior ones. And then we also need to deal with the consequences of that. Surely that is just temporarily, because sooner or later we get tired of our own negativity, our own vices, and we choose to restructure ourselves, actualizing our values, taking the responsibility towards our thoughts, sustaining them more, training, practicing, and learning to nourish us towards what is good for us and is good for others. When protected spirits allow their dear ones to be led astray in life, is it because they are powerless to confront malevolent spirits? The answer is, it is not because they are powerless, but because they do not want to. Good spirits will never impose themselves upon everyone, because they will always respect our free will. But the inferior spirits, they will really impose themselves on anyone who is receptive. So we need to be aware that the way that we think, we are attracting other spirits, we are tuning into other minds, we are tuning into other thinking beings. And if we choose our own inferiority, let's say through our inferior shadows, anger, slander, gossip, hatred, vengeance, and so on and so forth, we are connecting and tuning into these beings, despite of our spiritual benefactor may be inspiring us otherwise, but they will respect us. Why is the action of spirits in our lives so secretive when they are protecting us? Why don't they do so openly? We can even ask, why don't they come and say it loudly in our ears so that we know? Don't do this, do this. Don't go in that way, go in that way. Then we learn. For it to advance, the spirit to advance, it needs experience, and it must be acquired by its own expenses. So for us to evolve, we need to train to exercise our free will, to make choices, to understand that our choices bring consequences in our existences. And when we say consequences, surely we are not referring only negative one. If we choose in the right way, then we have positive consequences, healthier consequences. We feel more balanced, we feel more centered, we feel healthier, because we are choosing to stimulate our free will in a correct way, according to the wisdom that we bring within ourselves already. Always be aware that the ego still is very strong within us, but strong does not mean that it's free to do what it wants, as long as we choose to step up, connect with our own inner wisdom, with the self level, and make choices and decisions on that dimension onwards, so that we also empower ourselves. Besides our protected spirit, is an evil spirit connected to each one of us for the purpose of leading us into evil and for providing us an opportunity to struggle with good and evil? Connected is not the right term. It is certain that evil spirits try to draw individuals away from the moral path when they find the opportunity. However, when one of them connects itself to the individual, it does so of its own accord because it hopes to be listened to. This gives rise to a struggle between the good and the evil, winning the one by whom man allows himself to be influenced. We all have struggles within ourselves, from the conscious and unconscious minds, through our old, negative, strong belief systems that sometimes are running for itself, as we started presenting at the beginning of these talks through one of the slides. But also we have the power, if we want to it's not to fight, in a sense, to refuse them or neglect or deny or ignore those negative thoughts, but it is to position ourselves in an assertive way from the conscious, rational mind onwards and say, yes, I'm aware that I'm very negative today. I'm aware that I conditioned myself as a immortal being so far. And I'm also aware that I can decondition myself in that way as long as I choose to be more creative in the present and choose to think otherwise. We can always change. We can always potentialize ourselves. That is very important to reflect that it's no evil spirit, no imperfect soul can affect us if we are not allowing that to happen. How is that? When we take responsibility for our own shadows, our own imperfections, and constantly stimulate ourselves freely in stimulating to be good, to be humble, to forgive, to be patient, all these virtuous elements that we are developing as we evolve throughout the different existences. What should be thought of individuals who seem to attach themselves to others in order to lead them into downfall, or on the other hand, to guide them along the path of goodness? Some individuals exert a certain effect on others. They hold a kind of spell over them that seems irresistible. When this happens for evil, they are in fact evil spirits whom other evil spirits employ in order to better subjugate their victims. If that happens, God allows to prove us so that we can be tested in exercising further our free will. Always remembering free will is something that we need to practice, the same as our willpower, the same as the faculty of responsibility. They are all abilities. They are not ready giving. They need our attention, our focus, our exercise, our training. It's the same as we go in a gym and exercise our physical body. The mental states also need to be practiced, repeated, and exercised. Since spirits are attracted to individuals out of sympathy, are they attracted to groups of individuals for particular reasons as well? Spirits prefer places where they can be amongst those who are likewise. In such places, they can be more at ease and certain of being listened to. Humans attract spirits according to their tendencies. So it's very important. What are my preferable tendencies? What are my intentions or motivations behind my tendencies, my values, my desires, my needs? As more as we become aware of who we are on a deeper level, certainly all of us, including myself, we will become aware of our shadows. But be aware does not mean that we are choosing to identify ourselves with and therefore intensify. No, we are choosing to be wiser than we have been at the present and not to validate them, so that we can progress, that we develop our own inner strength in terms of being creative. As I mentioned, being creative means understanding that we have options. We do not need actually to just carry on being slaves, but has been conditioned, or what other spirits may be suggesting to us. As we mentioned, I repeat again, how to connect with the spiritual world. The spiritual world is everywhere where we are. Every thinking being is thinking and therefore is communicating with ourselves, with others in this planet or beyond that. Do spirits exert any influence on the events of life? Certainly, because they counsel you. The question is, who is counseling me? Who am I allowing to inspire my life, inspire my thinking? Because all of us has a free will. That is important. In the rancor of the beings who have harmed us on earth, extinguished when their corporeal life ends, and then we are told and learning from those who are more evolved than us, the beings that we harmed, they already forgive us. Those who still are equal to us or lower, they still may be with anger and rancor or hatred towards us, and also maybe us. Remember, we are not dying, we carry on as we are, so it's important to revise our own feelings or our emotions and work on them, because we will carry on being in psychological emotion the same as we are by the time of our death, or the physical death. So the main point is understanding that we all already harmed others, consciously or not, and we all are now within the opportunity to revise these experiences and to promote us, choosing now to forgive ourselves for our own mistakes, also to forgive others. We can do that through our thoughts. We don't need to be actually present with the other being. We can do that sincerely from our hearts, and also the way that we think is fundamental. And then in the book that we learn here, by Dr. Jim Holston, in his book, The Search for the Beloved Journeys in Sacred Psychology, he says it is the root self, the ground of one's being, and the seeded code essence in you, which contains both the patterns and the possibilities of our lives. We all bring the natural law written within our own consciousness. There, what Dr. John here says is true. In the rooted self, in the deepest of each one of us, we bring the essence code of the universal laws within ourselves. Therefore, the patterns and the possibilities of our life in essence, which still need to be something that we choose, that we prefer, and that we train ourselves also with, so that we are, again, communicating with other beings, wherever we are, with who we are, in a more healthier way, that we attract groups of spirits that are also helping us and we helping them together, because we help each other in terms of promoting, in terms of evolving, in terms of healing ourselves. We could also be involved in the contrary, to hurting each other. But evolution means healing. We are engaging our own healing process. Do spirits sometimes meddle in the occupations and pleasures? Commonplace spirits, as you call them, yes. They are constantly around you and at times takes a very active part in all what you do. How to communicate with the spiritual world? Through our thoughts, through our feelings, through our actions. Quite often, those who are more evolved and we are receptive to receive their guidance, we are impacting our lives and other lives in a positive, constructive way. Now, when we still prefer our own shadows, for instance, I still love, appreciate in a negative way gossiping around people, slandering around people, hating people, fighting against each other, this negative way, envy, jealousy, those are negative elements, shadows within us, and there is no other way we will be connected with the spirits with the same tendencies. And sometimes, because of these inferior aspects within ourselves, we allow them to impact our mentality and direct our own thoughts. It is important to work towards our own individuation, developing our own individuality, that we develop our own ability of awareness to be in charge of our selection, selecting our own thoughts, so that we, let's say, become more in autonomy of our minds, of our thought process. As we carry on here in the book by Dr. Lynn Sperry, Spirituality in Clinical Practice, he teaches by saying, compassion involves the willingness to forgive and be kind to others regardless of their behavior. Rather than to seek revenge or to enjoy their embarrassments or suffering. It involves feeling of brotherly love and the absence of hostility. Compassion. Compassion is inner freedom. Compassion is a feeling which we develop, which we acquire, as more as we learn to forgive ourselves and also free ourselves from any hostile element that we still bring within us, in choosing to be more friendly with each other, to be better instead of nasty. And in that way, again, we are tuning into beings who have interest in promoting us. And even when we have, let's say, inferior spirits, which still don't like us, may still interfere and misguide us. If that happens, we already acquire the potentiality internally, the autonomy in saying no to our negative tendencies and choosing the positive ones. As we learn, self-analysis is the divine service. Every soul that sheds its tendencies on evil is in tune with goodness and lets shine brotherhood throughout his pathway. When we choose gradually, we do understand that it's a gradual process. In becoming better today as we have been yesterday, tomorrow better than today, on the end of today, always observing what were our challenges, what were our shortcomings, and how to overcome them the next moment, the next day, the next experience that the universe will present to us. In that way, we will start to realize that we are much more stronger in goodness than we can believe sometimes. Sometimes our inferior complex overshadows or potentials that we already bring within. It's true that it is needed the exercise and practice. What is the nature of the relations between good and bad spirits? The good spirits are engaged in overcoming the evil inclinations of others. They are never pointing the finger. They are never slander or gossiping. They are always inspiring. If they cannot help, this silence. Because silence is a virtue. Silence is the ability of self-control that we bring within. So to help them to progress is the mission of good spirits. Any good being has that desire. If I cannot be useful, let's not be useless. It's selecting, it's developing the distinction between what is good for us and what is not. Why are inferior spirits delighted in inducing us to evil? That happens either us who are spirits as well, who are incarnate in the physical body, when we are inferior, full of jealousy, envy, low self-esteem, inferior complex, because we don't put effort into promoting ourselves and overcoming our shadows, engaging in goodness, and then we are still dominated by our own shadows, and therefore we project that on others. Because we are unhappy, unfulfilled, we are also, let's say, unhappy seeing other beings happy. So the projection of our own shadows. And it's important that we work on that, because essentially we are loving beings. Essentially we are good beings, but the goodness needs our attention, needs to be our preference. It is important to learn in the Spirit's book about the spirit hierarchy. We won't be focusing much here because it's huge, but it's just helping us to understand the different degrees, the different phases that we all go through in our evolution. When we talk about how to communicate with the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is everywhere and everyone is communicating with each other, it is fundamental to understand in general terms the third order, imperfect spirits. This is the order where the majority of us still are learning. There we have different classes: the impure spirits, the frivolous spirits, the spirits who falsely claim to be authorities, neutral spirits, noisy and boundaries spirits. Then we have the second order, good spirits. We all go through these orders. Then we have different classes: the benevolent spirits, learned spirits, wise spirits, high spirits, and the first order, pure spirits. We still are far away from that, but that is our destination, where we are aiming to go gradually as we evolve. In the Spirit's book, question 101, the third order, some characters about the third order, the imperfect spirits, just for us to know, to get to know who we are and with whom we are connected to. Predominance of matter over the spirit. I'll focus on the physical body, on the material life, and that's it. And really all the vices and everything that is available. Propensity for evil are the souls who still are preferring the shadows of themselves. They prefer to disturb themselves instead of healing themselves. Ignorance, pride, selfishness, and all the passions are that are consequent. So let's observe eventually if we have one of those and work in diminishing the power of them. In the language they use, their character is revealed. When a being is in this inferior level, we see that through the TV, these days through media. People can be in a high position on the physical level, but when they open the mouth, what they say, we can see where they are morally, ethically. And when we say about moral values, we are not referring to morality on human basis, which is transitory and changes throughout epochs. We are talking about ethics and moral values that are atemporal, which are universal. Every spirit that is in its communications betrays a bad thought can be classified in the third order. Consequently, every bad thought that is suggested to us comes from a bad spirit. We also can suggest others, so it's important always to be attentive, aware before we open our mouth and express our words. It's better not to say our negative elements. Let's filter them and let's promote us. They see, now we are in a different order here, which are the imperfect spirits still. They see the happiness of the good, and this scene is a constant torment for them. We don't make the effort to promote us, then we are tormented with other people who are better than we are, because it makes them experience all the anguish that envy and jealousy can cause. Let's overcome them in exercising self-love, self-respect, empowerment from our divine aspect that we all bring within. Impure spirits, we have a tendency here, inclined to evil. They give perfidious advice, blow discord and mistrust. Then we see aspects here in human relationships that we also see within ourselves and choose to overcome them as we go through the inner transformation process, which is part of the healing process. And therefore, we are more attentive if we are in a social event that we may not cooperate, because cooperating these misleading and discord aspects, we are tuning into the same spirits. We want to promote ourselves. When incarnate, the living beings that they constitute upon the all vices, which we are here, vices understands are habits that we learned and we are repeating, but we can change habits and can create new ones. This is why we are here actually. And frivolous spirits is also important to see. They get involved in everything without being bothered by the truth. They don't have any understanding about the consequences in their lives. They just want to create confusion. They like to cause small dislikes of intrigue, of mislead. They like to disturb people, to draw one against the other. They love to inspire the gossip and slander everywhere where they are, because they really want to be in this disturbing movement. Let's us, Zwirtes spirits, also be attentive And if that comes up from unconscious minds, stop, put the brakes on, be wise, train ourselves in conquering or in autonomy. Predominance of the spirit over matter. Now we are talking about good spirits, which helps us to tune into good beings, learning these values. Predominance of a spirit over matter. When we are spiritualizing ourselves gradually, even when we are in the physical body, when we are on earth, we have review. We can choose what we prefer in our existences. Desire of good, wherever they are and with who they are happy for the good they do and for the evil they prevent. Let's follow them in molding us. When incarnate, they are kind and benevolent with their fellow beings. They are not moved by pride, nor selfishness, nor ambition. They do not experience hatred, rancor, envy, and jealousy, and do good for good. They don't have second intention. They don't do good in order to be seen, to be uploaded, to be noticed. No, it's their nature. They already develop the goodness within, therefore, whatever we develop from the self level onwards, from the divine within us, as we are promoting ourselves, naturally that comes through our way of being as we are engaging towards our social life where we are. Goodness is the predominance. Here we are talking about benevolent spirits. Goodness is the predominant quality of them. They are pleased to serve others. See the difference as more as we evolve, which kind of faculties, which kind of preferences will predominate our consciousness. They have progressed more in the moral sense than intellectual. And as we carry on, the superior spirits in the journey where we are, the language they use always radiates benevolence. It is a dignified language. They communicate complacently with those who seek the truth in good faith and whose soul is already quite detached from earthly ties. That is our aim, to look forward, how we are conquering these abilities. We have the germs within us, but it's a question of preference. And still, as we learn here in the book, Sacred Science, Person-Centered Inquiry into the Spiritual and Subtle, is by John Heron, who is a British psychologist. He says, the preoccupation with letting go, of course, raises serious problems about everyday life, about relationships with others, people essential to one's life. Mindful, no attachment can be readily practiced in the solitude of meditation. So, how to connect with the spiritual world? As I mentioned, the spiritual world is everywhere where we are, and it's through our way of being. The reality is that we are all communicating, connecting with the spiritual world, always. The main point that we need to observe, which kind of spirits I am connecting with. If I believe in that or not, it is happening. Natural law will not change because of my ignorance. It is happening. As less as I know about the spiritual reality, that we are all connected with each other on this planet, on different planets, from Earth, from the spiritual world, as less as I know, more easily I'm driven, suggested, and manipulated by the inferior beings. As more as I know, as more we evolve, more we have consciousness, and therefore we use our free will to choose, to select with who we want to be with. So meditation is helping us a lot in that sense, having moments with our own company to think about what is going on inside ourselves on the psychic level, what we already conquered in terms of inner potentials, with whom I am connected to through my way of thinking. I am aware which kind of thoughts, which kind of belief systems I'm sustaining on a daily basis. Then we also have Miko Levin in the book Spiritual Intelligence, where she is also referring, saying that spiritual development will be governed by the extent to which you can resolve your emotional and spiritual issues. That is so true. Our spirituality will unfold to the extent that we choose to heal, to sort out our own emotional, mental problems, and finding solutions. In finding solutions, we are exercising our free will with the help of our spiritual benefactors, and we are promoting ourselves. And she carries on as we are finalizing our reflections today, saying, there is a great joy in knowing your link to all others and honoring it, helping others, sharing, joining together with them to create the well-being of all. How to connect with the spiritual world through our way of being. Let's choose to improve ourselves, to develop ourselves towards fraternity, solidarity, cooperation for the good of all. Doesn't matter who the other is, we are all interconnected. And in that way, we are connecting with other beings, either here on the planet Earth and beyond. As we mentioned throughout our talk earlier on, we also communicate and connect with other beings, sometimes from other planets, sometimes from other existences, when we are asleep, because the body sleeps, but the soul not, the spirit not. So let's join us together in this suggestion that we receive here in promoting well-being within us and also around us. We are, by the natural laws, already interconnected through the law of love. We are learning to love ourselves and others in a more mature way. In the selfish way, we choose love those who love us, and quite often that love is attachment, is selfishness. But here we are talking about promoting the soul, the spirit, and not only here on earth, but beyond, and those who are with us in the spirit. The references, the suggestions, the invitation is the same, as the natural laws are equal for all beings in the universe. We are all interconnected and we are communicating with each other. As we want to have a better society, a better family, a healthy environment where we are, we need to also help to promote that. So I hope that these reflections at least can give us some insight, that we can think twice what we are thinking before we express that, and choosing and selecting our words that helps us to promote, and therefore also to choose on a daily basis to tune into, to connect to with our spiritual guides, with our familiar spirits that we have, either from this existence or from previous existences. We are constantly communicating in the universe. Let's choose the ways of communicating, which means through love, through forgiveness, through brotherhood. And as we're coming to the end, we express our gratitude for this unique moment in our existences, that we are together, ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are also with us, and also for the spirit's benefactors who have been with us here, guiding us, inspiring us, inviting us, for us to advance, so that we have this feeling, this sense that we are never alone. We have always good beings with us, although we have also sometimes those who still want to disturb us. Let's always choose to be with those who are good beings, either incarnate or without a physical body. And in that way, expressing our gratitude also for life, for our existences, for Spiritism in our existences. Spiritism being a science which deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of the spirits and their relationship with the corporeal world, so that we are learning to free ourselves from previous limited viewpoints, and also our gratitude for our own reincarnation, which is a new opportunity for us to renew ourselves, to improve ourselves, to evolve and to progress, to be better, to be more loving, to be more forgiving, and in that way promoting ourselves and promoting the world around us. Also, we express our gratitude for everyone and everything in our existences. We even express our gratitude for the challenging moments that we are facing, understand that they are blessings in our existences in order for us to free ourselves from our own limitations and expanding our own potentials that we bring within. With our hearts full of gratitude, we say thanks for this moment. We say thanks to you who have been with us, and hope that we can be together in other opportunities. And in that way, we are coming to the end. Wish you well. Wish you much peace. Bye-bye. See you.